From a Professor Oak cutscene that 99% of players have never seen, to getting Gengar before the first gym, today we're looking at 11 obscure secrets in Gen 1 Pokémon. Now there's actually 3 separate events that take place in Oak's lab, and over 99% of players have only seen the first 2. At the very start of your Pokémon journey, the first venture into Oak's lab sees the player get their starter and fight the rival. From here, we head to Viridian to get Oak's parcel, and upon returning, we're gifted with the Pokédex. But it's from here that most players head towards Pewter and actually miss the 3rd event. See, once the player has the Pokédex, they can head to Route 22 for an optional rival battle. If you head back to Oak's lab for a 3rd time, there's actually another script. If you've still not bought any Pokeballs from the mart and therefore haven't caught another Pokemon, Oak will actually take pity, and what follows is some dialogue where he gives you 5 free Pokeballs. Now, most players would use these Pokeballs to catch a Wild Pidgey or Nidoran, but keep watching to the end if you'd like to know how you could catch a Gengar here instead. What you're seeing here is a recreation of unused code for Pokemon Yellow. Data miners were able to find script for an alternate battle sequence where if the player chooses any option but to run, the game will say, "Hurry, get away." Now, the gameplay you're seeing on here with the rival fight is just a placeholder example, and there's no code that actually directs it to a certain part in the game. But what seems most likely is that this code was for a scrapped anime cutscene. Remember all the way back in episode 1 of the anime where Ash and Pikachu are attacked by a flock of angry sparrows? Well, it's possible that this code was intended to simulate that scene, but then was later scrapped due to memory restrictions on the old cartridges. In Red and Blue, there is a lesser-known glitch to actually get all 3 starters. To begin, you start a new game and select a starter. Save immediately after selecting, reset, and then start a new game. Now, as soon as you spawn into your bedroom, you're going to start to save again. Our goal here, though, is to actually do some corruption so that we're able to merge the 2 save files together. And so basically, as you're saving in this new world, your goal is to turn the game off on a specific frame so that you actually merge the save files. This is really tricky though. If you save too early, the file doesn't catch and you're sent back to the original file in Professor Oak's lab. If you save too late, you simply overwrite the first file. And if you do it on a really bad frame, you actually have the potential to just corrupt both save files. However, if you manage to hit the right frame, you can merge data from both save files. Doing so puts you in the second world where the player is in the bedroom and no starter has been chosen, but you have retained the party information of the previous save, which already has a starter. So if done right, you can go to Oak's lab once again and grab a second starter. And in theory, this is repeatable again to give you all 3 starters. The big problem is it's just very tricky to nail, as repeating the glitch twice without corrupting requires a high level of precision. Now, instead of getting all 3 starters, have you ever wondered what happens to your rival if you don't pick a starter at all? Well, it turns out that if you're able to glitch past this part of the game and never set a flag for the starter selection, the game has actually prepared for this. The game just automatically sets Blue's default team for this scenario to be Charmander, which I guess means the game auto-progresses to assume that you picked Bulbasaur. What's especially cool about this trick is it can be updated at any time, which means if the player goes back and picks up a starter later, all following fights will actually update to reflect your actual starter selection, meaning that you can actually have a playthrough where Blue has 2 different starters. Moving ahead past the first badge, however, there's one detail in Mount Moon that a lot of players miss. So when you're posed with the option to choose a fossil, the super nerd you just defeated will take the one you leave behind. And while this makes that fossil unobtainable for your run, it's not actually gone from the world. Because after arriving in Fuchsia, you may notice that the fossil the super nerd acquired can actually be seen chilling in Fuchsia's zoo. Yeah, as it turns out, the super nerd is a better guy than us and actually put the endangered animal in a safe habitat. In the ROM hack of Yellow we're making, you will be able to get both fossil Pokemon, however. And it's actually been working on the Yellow ROM hack that has taught me a lot of the things on this list. Like, for example, did you know that when Body Slam is used against a normal Pokemon, it can't be paralyzed? I think it's because this is an oddity that doesn't happen. It's something that just often goes unconsidered. But when I first realized this, my mind was blown. And this is basically due to just an oddity in the Gen 1 code. And what's crazy is the paralysis oddities go even further. In Gen 1, a Pokemon paralyzed has its speed reduced by 75%, but using agility returns the dropped speed to normal and then then doubles it. Even weirder though is the speed drop will stay if the Pokemon was cured of paralysis using an item or rest. Psywave is another move that behaves very weirdly in Gen 1. For the AI, and I'm gonna simplify this, the math is basically programmed so that it does between 0% and 150% of the player's level. But for the player, this is different, and it's actually for some reason 100% of the level to 150%. And this actually means that Psywave is a much better move than most of us think. There's actually a track found in the code of Pokemon Yellow that doesn't ever get used. According to video game music resources, the file name suggests that it was supposed to be Giovanni's theme, and I think that is half true. This has got some people speculating that this was actually intended to be the music of the 8th gym. Because think about it, to a player who doesn't know that Giovanni is the final gym leader, this song actually fits that concept perfectly. It's daunting and is indicating a higher sense of danger and impending challenge. What's crazy though is this is not even the only unused rocket data. In the party code, there's actually a rocket team that goes entirely unused. I mean, there's actually like a few, but most of them are just really uninteresting Rattata teams. This fight, however, features a level 32 Cubone, Drowsy, and Marowak. And what I find so especially interesting here is the inclusion of the Cubone family. There aren't a lot of Marowaks seen in the game, and this is assumed to be in relation to the killing of the Cubone's mother in the Pokemon Tower. Given this, it could be assumed that this team was part of a cut storyline. It may have also just been meant as a small reference to show that they had caught a few to at least test their power, but either way, I find it really interesting as to why this team was considered yet later cut. Now, the proximity between Kanto and Johto makes them the tightest connected regions in the series. It turns out that the Dragon Master Lance, notorious Final E4 member of the Indigo Plateau, he's actually from Johto. Not only did he grow up next to the Dragon's Den in Blackthorn City, but he's actually cousins with Claire, who is the Blackthorn leader at the time of Gen 2. But of all the secrets in Generation 1, really my favorite of all time is the early game exploit that allows you to get a ton of rare Pokemon, like Gengar before Brock. Now you can even get these Pokemon at level 100, but I think it's more fun to get them at a low level and then just actually run the game. I'm gonna use Gengar as an example of how to do it, but then also show how you can modify the exploit to get some other Pokemon as well. First, select Charmander as your starter, buy as many Pokeballs as you can, and proceed through the game to Viridian Forest. Get Charmander poisoned and set a save state before this trainer. Basically, you want to keep resetting until you get a wild encounter on the same tile that is in front of this trainer. Now, since you're poisoned, you can easily faint, and as you leave the battle, the trainer will finally notice you, only for you to white out and be warped to Viridian Pokemon Center. This essentially sets a flag that tells the game as soon as you enter Viridian Forest, you are going to enter a battle. And before we go in, we can actually give the game information for it to decide what we're going to encounter. Now, if we want to get Gengar, we need to head to Route 22 and get to Blue Squirtle. This Squirtle has a special stat of 14, and the game is going to use that value as the index number for the Pokemon we're going to encounter. 14 happens to line up with Gengar, but there are other options too. If you choose Squirtle and faces Bulbasaur, its 16 special will equate to Nidoqueen. Facing Charmander yields 15, which is just a Nidoran, but the rival Sparrow is 12, which gives you Execute. It also works for wild Pokemon. Facing a level 3 wild Pidgey yields 7 special for Nidoking, and I've included the whole list plus a Gen 1 stat calculator if there's something you specifically want. But the other aspect of this glitch is you can use a stat lowering move like Growl to affect the level of the desired Pokemon. The Gengar's default level will be 7, but if you use Growl 6 times, it will lower its level 6 times down to 1. Regardless though, once you finish the fight and head back to Viridian Forest, the battle flag is still set, and the game will read the last seen special stat as the corresponding encounter. Now, if you let it just be a normal level, all you need to do is catch it, which, considering it's Gengar, might be a little bit challenging, so definitely be careful. Running a low-level Gengar, however, is very cool. Almost as cool as the 2 videos that the YouTube algorithm is currently recommending you.